finds a new world record, 47.6.
The 800-meter world record and the 400-meter world record on the women's sides have long been regarded as two of the most controversial world records of all time. Not just because they are the two oldest track and field world records to date, but because the athletes that set them were also some very controversial figures. Czechoslovakia's Jarmila Kratochvílová currently holds the world record at 1 minute and 53 seconds, and in the 400 meters, it stands with Marita Koch at 47.6. These two times are incredible clockings on the women's side, and even though they have stood for generations and generations, there are two athletes right now that many think are capable of breaking these times, and these two athletes are Sydney McLaughlin and Athing Mu. Now, recently the world was desperately anticipating these two hitting the track in 2023. In fact, they were both scheduled to run in the upcoming weekend's LA Grand Prix, where Athing Mu was to run in the 1500 and Sydney McLaughlin was set to run in the 400 meters. However, according to their coach Bobby Kersee, McLaughlin suffered a small hamstring injury, and for Athing Mu, well, she caught COVID, so she is not in the fitness that she needs to be. Now, there's a very interesting interview where Bobby Kersee breaks down what he thinks that these two athletes are capable of doing. And out of everything that I read, the most staggering thing that he said is that he believes that Athing Mu is capable of doubling in the Olympic Games in the 800 and the 1500, which is a little confusing considering that Athing Mu has been a very consistent 400-meter runner for the previous few years. In fact, up until very recently, she was the NCAA record holder in the 400, running well below 50 seconds in this discipline. Now, I do fully believe that if Athing Mu really put together solid 1500-meter training, that she could potentially put together a sub-4-minute 1500 clocking. I mean, she does have incredible strength that we've seen in the 800, and she clearly has world-class endurance. But an 800 and a 1500-meter double on the world's biggest stage, while running multiple rounds, is a huge ask. And while Athing Mu is clearly one of the greatest track and field athletes to come into the United States for the previous generation, this is a huge statement. But Bobby Kersee has full faith in his athletes. And while this does seem a little bit too much for one athlete to attain, if anyone could do it, perhaps it could be Athing Mu. But also, we have to go over to Sydney McLaughlin because he also believes that she has the perfect ability to break 48 seconds in the 400 and potentially break Marita Koch's 47.6 clocking from 1985. Now, we've made various videos in the past that take a deep dive into these two world records, and we'll make sure to leave links to those videos down below. But to boil it down, Kratochvílová's 800-meter world record is just so much faster than anyone else to ever run in this event that it definitely leaves a weird taste in your mouth. Because given that she ran this time in the 1980s and that nobody has even gotten close to it for the previous 40 years is, to put it lightly, a little suspect. And with tremendous athletes such as Pamela Gelimo, Caster Semenya, and now Athing Mu to not even get within a second of it is definitely a little bizarre. And it honestly is just strange altogether that her build does not match a typical 800-meter runner. For the top athletes in the 800 on the men's and women's sides, they're typically tall, lean, and have natural abilities. And for Kratochvílová, well, she is way more muscular than any other athlete in world record history in the 800. It's as simple as that. Now, to this day, this time still stands as the record, and that's the standard that people are still aiming to hit. So the official time still stands at 1:53. And back over to Bobby Kersee, he believes that Athing Mu can break 1:53 and potentially break 1:52. Which sounds insane, honestly. Picturing Athing Mu running a 1:51 in the 800 almost doesn't line up with the brain. But that's what he believes. And if he believes it, potentially it's gonna happen. So definitely keep your eyes open for her next race. However, at the moment at least, we don't know when that will be. It's a little bit complicated for both of these two athletes because McLaughlin and Athing Mu are the reigning world champions at the 800 and the 400 hurdles. So they have a natural bye into this year's World Championships. So in the United States National Championships, they won't be running in their World Championship qualifying races, as McLaughlin will likely be running in the 400, and Athing Mu is likely set to run in the 1500. It honestly will be quite the World Championships to look forward to if Athing Mu and Sydney McLaughlin do attempt to attack these world records. But potentially they'll have to wait until next year to do that. Given that Bobby Kersee wants to take his time with his athletes, and he definitely takes a thorough approach to having them compete exactly when he wants to. It certainly would have been exciting to see them compete in this year's Los Angeles Grand Prix. In fact, the 1500 and the 400 were two of the marquee events, given that they were running in them. But now, since they're not even competing, there's not nearly as much excitement with these two disciplines. So we'll simply have to wait until the next race to watch them run. And now I want to hear from all of you. How fast do you think Sydney McLaughlin and Athing Mu can run in the 400, the 400 hurdles, the 800, and even up to the 1500 for Athing Mu? It honestly does seem pretty legitimate to say that Sydney McLaughlin McLaughlin can break the 48-second barrier and become one of only 3 athletes to ever break this mark. In fact, just to put it into a little bit more context, there has only been 2 athletes to ever break 48, and there hasn't even been an athlete within half of a second of this world record for the past 38 years. That is a tremendous standard that definitely raises an eyebrow or two. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and we'll have a dialogue about these world records. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, until next time.